Hello, just Eight Loud Stuff is here, and we're gonna talk about Mariah Carey in this episode. And when we decided to do Mariah Carey, I knew who I need here to talk about Mariah Carey, and that's my friend, left or right of me, Vanessa,
Hello.
and may, the biggest Mariah Carey fan I know is sitting here beside me, and yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting episode, I feel like. But yeah, I think we're going to start by discussing our memories of Mariah Carey. So, Vanessa, how did this fandom of yours started?
Well, I was a kid. I would have first heard her songs on the radio in the early 90s. So the first song I remember hearing was Make It Happen and remember liking it. But I was still like 7 years old. So, I just heard it on the radio. It was cool. But around the Daydream era is when I got my first album of hers and then just got really into listening to her. And kind of, even though I've gone in many different directions with my musical tastes over the years, I've always had a special place in my heart for Mariah, even as she's gone through many journeys and changed her sound many times to varying degrees of success. There's always been something that's kept me a fan of hers. And I don't know. I mean, I just really like how she comes across as a person. I know people like to think she's a diva and all this stuff, but I think she really just has a very dry sense of humor, and she's just a very kind of a funnier person than people realize, and just just really like her. So happy to be here and talk about her discography. And it was very interesting for me to go through this from a critical standpoint because I've never done that before. So my list has come out quite differently than I might have guessed in some ways. So, and I'm interested to see how your journey went because I feel like we're gonna connect to some different stuff of hers.
Yeah, um, yeah, definitely an interesting journey, and yeah, I don't know exactly when did Mariah come to my life, but I remember seeing when I was a kid the videos to We Belong Together and Touch My Body come from there was like a one channel here in Finland that had all day long like music videos come there, and I used to watch them sometimes. But hmm, and obviously I knew at some point that the Christmas Christmas song we all know. And
Yeah.
but um I don't know, was it like 2018 or 19? I bought the I found a very cheap album of hers. I'm pretty sure my first one was the live EP, MTV Unplugged, I think it's called. And I kept listening that, and then some hits from Spotify, and was like a casual singles fan of Mariah. And yeah, then at some point I started buying some of her albums, and I knew like a certain era the best when it comes to Mariah, and I won't say which yet, but because it could might be a spoiler. But yeah, I don't know, should I say it on here on camera, but I've had quite a long time a crush on 90s Mariah at least, and and but yeah, enough about that. But so. I guess we can go to the main part of the show, and it's the ranking of the 15 albums we decided to include here. That includes the 2 Christmas albums and 1 soundtrack album, Glitter. And I don't know what will be your bottom, but I have a guess, but I won't say it. But I will say, did it go wrong, right or wrong? So, Vanessa, what's your number 15?
My number 15 is Memoirs of an Imperfect Angel. This is an album that I listened to a lot when it came out, but not much at all since then. It was presented as a return to form after the previous album, which is interesting when you consider the lead single Obsessed. It's one of her worst, in my opinion, and sounds super dated now. The album opens with the revenge anthem, Bet You Gonna Know, the prologue, which I think kind of sets the scene for the lyrical tone of the latter part of her career. So as time has gone on, she's become progressively less restrained with her lyrics and more conversational, which has worked to varying degrees of success, I think, but I don't know that it works that great on this album. This album continues in its predecessor's reliance on leaning into the current production trends of the day, and that does hurt it because I think the songs are weaker here. And there's just too many of them. The album is way too long for the lack of strength of the material. Way too many reprises, preludes, prologue, blah, 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 blah. It's so like painful to read the track listing on this. For my taste, like songs like Standing O and Up Out My Face, which did not need a reprise with the marching band at all. They're just grating. And I hate that late 2000s R&B production. Mariah Carey does not need auto-tune. And I don't care if it's a stylistic choice. So this album just drags on with no real highlights. And that cover of I Want to Know What Love is actually even worse than I remembered it being. So I have this at a 2.5.
Yep, my guess was correct. And that's also my bottom pick is Memoirs of an Imperfect Angel. And yeah, I don't know who decided to have 17 songs on a pop album. I think that's way too much, even if some of those were the short interludes, or I don't know how to call it, reprises and all, but why do we need reprises? Even here it's like About My Face and the next song is the reprise. Like I would maybe understand if it comes to the end of the album or something, but it's just so pointless. And yeah, the songs aren't the best Mariah has written. And I think Obsessed, there's like this kind of annoying, I don't know, is it auto-tune or what? There's some vocal effect there which I think annoys the hell out of me. But I don't really care about Candy Bling either. Ribbon has a very annoying, just like a weird voice in the beginning, and that's I don't get. And Inseparable, I remember was pretty good. I think it had like a great visual note at the end, which when those happens, I really like those. But Standing O is I don't get the song at all. It's like oh said 1,000 times, like it's so out. And with the Up Out of My Face, it has like I kind of like there's like this big sound backing up Mariah, but something about some of the way that she says some of the words, and like when she says boy is super annoying to me. It's a little things that but when they're done multiple times, it starts to annoy you. One of the good things about this album, I think some of the best songs for me probably in those last couple of spots. Sure, it's a long journey to get there, but at least there's like a pretty good ending, I'd say. I like Angel's Cry. I think that has good vocals on it, and I think sure it's some of interlude. It's the languishing. I don't know how to say it. It's like a
Languishing.
yeah, thank you. It's like a piano ballad with a heartfelt vocal, and yeah, I kind of like that kind of stuff. But damn, it's a long album, and um, I like the Foreigner cover, but it's kind of a like ending with a cover is a bit yeah, I don't know about that, but and I'm glad they got the mm, like a that was like a it goes bigger in the end, so I was kind of worried that it won't go as big because I like the big moments, but yeah, it's an album I don't think I'm ever gonna go back to honestly. Uh, so I had this at 2 stars. I think I can mention some things that I like about it, but it's quite a boring album, I'd say. It's pretty tough to listen to, even if it's not the worst thing I've heard. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's number 15.
yeah, it's a good bottom. I kind of guessed it would be the bottom, but it was, yeah, it was definitely confirmed. Um,
Yeah,
so this was not a good time period for her because my number 14 is also from this time period. It's Merry Christmas to You. Um, so this Christmas album has always gotten overshadowed for me by her other Christmas album, even if I do think Oh Santa is a banger and another super strong Christmas original from Mariah, which is always a difficult thing to do. People try and fail all the time, and she's done it more than once. But where Merry Christmas has become a holiday staple for me every year, this one arrived a little bit too late in the game to earn a spot among my holiday favorites. Christmas Time is in the Air Again is another nice original with classic vibes, which she does well. However, I'm not a huge fan of many of the renditions of traditional or classic songs on this album. At times, it seems like they're lacking energy or something. I don't know. It's just very lackluster. They also try to be too modern with some of the songs, like with Here Comes Santa Claus. I've never liked her version at all. I find it just kind of grating. And a lot of this just lacks the charm of her first Christmas album. And I personally find it an unnecessary addition to her discography. I think she could have just released a single of the best two songs and called it a day. And I don't love this direction she's taken of leaning into being a Christmas artist more than anything else. Like that really grinds my gears. So maybe that makes me like this even less, but I don't know. It's just not very good. Um, there's some repeated tracks here from the first Christmas album, that live version of Oh Holy Night, which I don't think is necessary. I don't think it really adds too much. It's very similar to the studio version. And that extra festive version of All I Want for Christmas Is You, where aside from the extended intro and some more bells, I don't really know what's different about it. Like there's no reason for it to exist. I don't know. So those could have easily been left off to make this a little more brief because it's actually quite long for a Christmas album. I think it's like 50 minutes or close to 50 minutes long. So aside from a couple tracks on here, I don't really care for this much. It's fine, but I don't need it. So it's another 2.5 for me.
yeah, makes sense. Um, uh, yeah, I don't know where will this come up on your list. I have to say some of these albums are really close to each other, so it wasn't the easiest to rank this maybe. And yeah, it's like some of these albums that it's like goes into a ear and comes out of the other sort of thing. But I have the EMC2 next from 2008. I don't know, did I say it correctly? But
I think it's meant to be E equals MC squared, I think. I think
oh
is how
yeah,
it's.
yeah, that is true. But yeah, we know which album I'm talking about. So yeah, but yeah, yeah. These albums were a bit tough for me. This is not the longest album, but to me, these kind of sort of modern pop albums, basically, uh, kind of not for me. I prefer the more lively, um, when you feel like humans are actually playing the instruments, sort of thing. That makes me sound way older than I actually am. But I really do. But um it's not the worst thing ever. I don't think this is the best use of um features in a Mariah album. I think those were stronger in the previous ones. Um, Not a big T-Pain fan myself. I don't know how other people feel about T-Pain. I've not discussed about T-Pain ever, but um, sort of like this. I think he like was this autotune rapper that make autotune big, I guess. It
It was
is it
kind of his.
correct?
He was very like, it's weird because from what I've heard, he can actually sing very well, but his thing was
Oh.
to be very auto-tuned. So you would never know. But I've heard raw
Yeah.
audio of his voice and it's like, wow, T-Pain actually can sing. Why? But it was so trendy at that time. That auto-tune thing, it was everywhere. So I guess that was how you got noticed. I don't know.
You got noticed by sounding like everyone else using the same effect. But Touch My Body, we've discussed about this song a little with Vanessa. Yeah, not my cup of tea here, but it almost sounds like Mariah is almost like rapping some of her lines or parts. And yeah, I think it's my least favorite number one single she has. And this uh sexuality is off the building here, and with the, I think the video is like made to be like to be a joke or something like that. And there's the 30 Rock actor. I don't remember his name at the moment, but yeah. Um, then with Cruise Control, there was some sort of reggae thing happening there, and I don't mind testing out things, but I don't really thought it was the best use of reggae I've heard. Um, I think the Mariah parts doing the reggae accent sort of uh, is a bit cringe to me, but it's like it's not too much though, so it's not like the worst thing. And maybe my favorite song is actually the next one, I Stay Love, which is like this. It had like multiple good melodies to it, and yeah, I sometimes prefer when there's no outside features, but it kind of depends on a song too. And because I'm here for Mariah and not for all the tune rappers, um, but yeah, again, 14 songs. I think that's uh, like I'm always kind of a camp like pick your best 10 or pick your best 12 at the most maybe. But especially like this sort of pop atmosphere, it's not like a concept album or anything, and but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna stay at 2 stars. a lot of this does go by me, and it kind of feels like some sort of bad, well, bad tasting sugary cereal that you feel hungry after you're done. But you know what? The production is still good. I'd say it's still pretty good. So, but yeah, not something for me. 2 stars.
Not super surprising. Yeah, it's very of its time, very trendy.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
that is true.
but it is not next for me, which is actually kind of a surprise for me. But anyway, so my number 3 is Charmbracelet. That's from 2002. When this album was first released, I considered it a huge disappointment. So despite the fact that Rainbow and Glitter were not her best work, I found plenty to enjoy about them at the time. However, this album was the first time I felt really let down, like as a fan. Some of it could have been due to my own evolving tastes. I was about 17 when it came out, so I was getting into different things. But I was also not a fan of the over-reliance on her whisper register throughout this album. Many of the songs, they seem to lack hooks. So I don't know. It didn't connect with me for a very long time. But that said, there were still songs on it that I listened to a lot at the time and appreciated, most notably in the first half of the album. And I have softened on it over the years, but there's definitely some production choices that really place it in a specific time period. So there's got a lot of that chipmunk backing vocals on multiple songs, rap features for the sake of rap features, it feels like they don't add anything, they don't really need to be there. And then there's just weird sound effects. Like that song, I Only Wanted, is this really beautiful ballad, but there's this weird water droplet noise throughout the song, which even at the time I thought was really weird. Like I don't know why it's there. It does distract from the rest of the song. So, but I do think it sounds better than similar music at the time. I'd say it sounds fuller from a production standpoint, but it's not quite as tinny as a lot of the early 2000s R&B sounded. Like a lot of it was very thin, and I feel like there is some body to this, but it's still really relying on those trends. So there's no denying that this is not her strongest effort from a writing perspective. And again, it's way too long. It's over an hour long. The sound of the album and that whisper register starts really great as the album progresses. And the songs are not strong enough to save it, I don't think. And the second half is a bit of a slog. And I've always thought that. I've always had a hard time getting through the second half of this album. And her cover of Bringing on the Heartbreak is so ill-advised and possibly the worst sounding song, I think, on this whole album. The chorus just sounds really messy. Like the way it all just kind of mashes together. I don't know. I didn't notice that as much back then, but I really noticed it going back to it this time. And ending the album with a remix of the first song is just so forgettable and unnecessary. Like, I don't know why they did that. I don't think I ever even listened to it at the time. When I went back to it, I didn't even remember it because I probably just stopped the album. If I even bothered to listen to it in full, I stopped it before that came on. So yeah, there's some stuff to like here, more stuff to like than the other two, but I'm still at 3 stars on this. I think it's decent, but it's not one I listen to very often, aside from maybe my favorite songs on it, which all fall at the beginning of it. So
Yeah, yeah. I have it next to number 13. And this is an album I've at least twice forgot about that it exists. I was like from Glitter to Mimi, but it's not. There's one in between. Yeah, I also found it to be disappointing, but it wasn't maybe the first disappointment I've had. But I think Through the Rain is a good song, but it's not like a. Usually Mariah starts her albums with like a fun big single or something, but doesn't happen here, unfortunately. And yeah, some of the features are a bit pointless, I agree. I even forgot Jay-Z it was on this album, but like Jay-Z has a much better on Heartbreaker, definitely. And 64 minutes of this is painful, but um it's like it's a bit painful, but it's not something like it's not a like a too bad songs in a way. It doesn't make me. Some of the songs on the my bottom picks makes me cringe, and I'm not sure. Do I feel that feeling here? I'm more bored, maybe overall, but and yeah, I don't know. Mariah keeps covering this classic. I don't know, classic rock, hard rock. What do you call it? Um, Power ballads from the 80s, and yeah, this is not the best Mariah Carey cover there is. But in some ways, I kind of I'm always intrigued by them because it's like, hey, I know this song, like, and but yeah, and I agree with the ending with the remix. It's like, why is this not marked as a bonus track? It's so odd, but yeah, it's a mid album, I guess, like a 2.5 stars. It's nothing to write home about, but it's not the worst thing. Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, mid is pretty well the best way to describe it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I have it a little higher just because of the highlights, but that's about
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So number 12 is absolutely hands down her worst album title. So it is Me, period. I am Mariah, the elusive Chanteuse. I remember when that came out, it was just like, why are you calling your album that? Like, that is horrible. But anyway, album is not horrible. But yeah. So aside from Merry Christmas to You, this is the Mariah album that I've listened to least in full. I bought it when it came out, but it always kind of felt like such a bloated album that I didn't feel inspired to listen to it much. And it didn't help that I bought the Target Deluxe Edition, which also has like I think 4 or 5 extra songs on it. So I remember it being delayed for a long time before it actually came out. I remember there was like a promo single that just didn't resonate with me. It was called Triumphant. It's not actually on the album, but it had, I think, Rick Ross or some rapper on it, but it wasn't very good. You don't need to know it. Anyway, so it's probably good they left it off. But I do think that the actual lead single to this album, #Beautiful, is one of her best in a very long time. So it has that going for it. As with her last several albums, this album leans into modern R&B songs of the era, but overall it's a bit richer than the previous album, and I think there's a bit more of a classic influence coming in. Make It Look Good features Stevie Wonder on harmonica, which immediately gives it a nice, more classic sound. And I think overall this album has that nice blend of those classic vibes with the modern sounds that albums like Mimi and Butterfly did best. But the songs are not quite on the same level as those two albums. But this album is better than it gets credit for being. But that said, it does still have its issues. It would be better if it was leaner, for one thing. There's a really good 40-minute album in here, but there's too much extra on it, I think. And I could do without some things, like the song Supernatural with the little kid voices. I know they're her kids, but I don't really think they make sense at all in this song. Like they sound like they're just awkwardly pasted on throughout this song, and like it just doesn't make sense with the lyrics. It doesn't make sense. So that I could really do without. And I also think her version of One More Try by George Michael should be better. Like that should really be a great cover for her, because I think that stylistically it should work. But the way they did it with there's this drum sound in it that's just so distracting, and it takes away from the whole song. So it just ultimately makes it sound kind of cheap and just is disappointing. But despite those issues, I still think it's a worthwhile listen, and I think it's actually quite a bit better than I remembered it being. So it's my first 3.5 of this ranking. I think it's good, but it could be better.
We're actually seeing eye to eye here again. So me, I Am Mariah is number 12. Yeah, when I started this album, I was already a bit burned out by these albums, and the 62-minute album wasn't the cure I needed. But I think it still has some great songs and a lot of songs that I probably don't need in my life. Well, not terrible, definitely. Um, I liked actually the rap feature with Nas here in Educated, and I also kind of like the first single #beautiful and with the another feature from Miguel. I think you probably say it, but then my favorite song probably was Camouflage with that was again I like the gospel ensemble stuff, and I feel like a lot of this album there wasn't any like this big gospel ensemble, and then there was like couple songs throughout the closer to end that those happened. I'm not completely sure, but that's what I felt like, and that all happens in the sort of medley song, I guess, with has the two songs in the same Heavenly No Ways, Tired and I Can't Give Up Now. And yeah, I didn't even realize this has George Michael cover. I was like, I didn't look up what song started to play, and then I was like, I know this song. But yeah, it could be better. I almost wished that she would have been covered that earlier too. While I think her voice is good here, nothing to worry about there. But yeah, it was a bit disappointing cover. Maybe that's a lot. I think a lot of the Mariah covers, oh, are like they usually just feels a bit kind of similar, but maybe a little not as big maybe as the originals. And but like yeah, I screwed up and thought that there was like in this spoken word thing, but it looks like it was a bonus track. But but it tells about the album title, I guess. Um, and yeah, I don't know, some of those songs like Cry, I don't think was that good. But yeah, still too long for me. I don't really understand the lengths of these albums, but so 2.5 stars for me. I Am Mariah.
Yeah. I probably would have expected I would have put it lower like that, but I did actually like it better this time around than I thought. But now we're going back to a little bit of an earlier time period with my number 11, and I'm going with Rainbow. This album continues in a similar format to the previous couple albums, opening with the first single and then leading into a big ballad for the second track. But from there, it leans much more into a hip hop influence and mixes up the formula a bit, while overall keeping a similar structure to those last few albums. The difference here is that there are some weaker songs than some of the previous albums. And this is the first album where I can say there are some songs I don't really like, and that feel like filler. The previous albums sound of their time, but I think because this one really leaned more into the trends of the time, that it is even more noticeable and more of a detriment in many instances. And it probably doesn't help that a lot of these production trends at the turn of the millennium have really not aged well at all. But that isn't to say that there aren't some good songs here. Heartbreaker, After Tonight, Bliss, Petals, those are all highlights. But this is definitely a noticeable step down from the rest of the 90s. The Against All Odds cover, I think, works reasonably well. And it's much better than the single version that features Boyzone. That version is definitely inferior to the solo album version. Like even the instrumentation's kind of thinner or something. And I still think, despite its shortcomings, it is a pleasant listen with a few hiccups. There's, especially sort of in that second half before Petals, there's some really weird, rappy, trendy kind of songs that just, I don't know, they kind of feel like they're trying too hard. So it doesn't quite reach the highs of some of the other albums, but I still think it's good enough. So it's 3.5 for me. And some of that probably comes from some history. I got all these when they came out. I listened to them a lot. So I don't know if I heard it for the first time now, if I would have the same opinion, but I don't know. It's part of it.
Yeah, I will have it a bit higher, but I'm gonna talk about the album you've already talked about. This is the Merry Christmas to You from 2010. And first of all, I think this feels more like a compilation than an album, I'd say. And it kind of feels like a cash grab, honestly, with hey, let's bring All I Want for Christmas Is You again. And oh, but um and yeah, there's also the problem that we have already a earlier Christmas album, and it doesn't really add up to me. And even I don't think the sound is. I prefer the 90s sound. This and like I just think most of the songs picked to the first are just better, honestly. And it's just like there's like the Oh Holy Night, there's like a live version in here. Like why? I don't get it. And but I honestly kinda still enjoyed listening to this. I'm not sure how much I got out of it, to be honest, but it's sort of still a pleasant listen, and 46 minutes is definitely better than if like 62-minute albums or but yeah, yeah. There's like I like some of these songs, and like I remember like maybe When Christmas Comes and Christmas Time is in the air again, I think. And I like when Mariah writes her own Christmas songs too, because like you said, it's not an easy thing to do, and you I think the uh, you almost have an easier time failing than conquering the Christmas market. Um, but I don't know how big of a hit Oh Santa was, but like, do you have anything?
I don't think it was that big of a hit. I just always really liked it. I thought it was like a good, peppy, fun track, but I don't remember it being everywhere or anything. Like I don't think it's resonated
Mm,
like All I Want for Christmas Is You. But and I mean it's
yeah,
not good as that song. I'm not trying to say that, but I
mm,
do think that it is definitely worth having, but I think it could have been a single rather than a whole album.
yeah, yeah. And I obviously used streaming when I listened to this one, and streaming doesn't have the extra festive version of All I Want for Christmas Is You. I'm not sure why. I'm
Yeah.
guessing maybe do they like want more streams with the original one? They put that in the
Maybe.
album, or I don't know. And there's no like confusion about the versions, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, if you're gonna listen to a Mariah Christmas album, go with the first one and not this. Or I think there's like a soundtrack nowadays to
Yeah.
her holiday special or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, was there another like movie soundtrack? A little,
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
there was the
sure.
animated film, like about
Yeah.
the little about her childhood, I guess, loosely. And I think there was a soundtrack to that. And then also the one to the iMovie or Apple TV, that's the word I'm looking for. There was a
Oh
holiday
yeah, yeah,
special
yeah.
3 years ago, and there's a soundtrack to that. But there's a lot of repetition between those and the actual albums, and they're definitely not essential at all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I also don't really like that they really market the Queen of Christmas type of,
Yeah,
and it's all about the Christmas when just she has so many great songs, other songs too. But um, so it's a bit unfortunate, but yeah, I give it a 3 stars for this. It's a pleasant listen, but it's not the Christmas album I would choose from her. Yeah,
no, yeah, it's fine, but it's not essential.
yeah, yeah.
So we're in the top
Oh,
10 now. Um, Number 10 is going to be Glitter for me, um, from 2001. So this is not an album I listened to much in full back when it came out. There's always some clear highlights and always some lesser tracks, I thought. So the interesting thing about Glitter that I always struggled with was the fact that it was supposed to be set in the early 80s, but they did not really do the best job of establishing that time period as a setting in the film, especially, but also with the soundtrack. Like, they're trying, but they're just not quite getting it, I don't think. And when you're going to do a period piece, you really got to go all in, for me personally. So that's always sort of held me back, well, especially with the film. But I mean, it's not known as a great movie anyway. um, so this album also has that problem. It's and pretty early on, that's apparent. Like, that third song, "If We," is pretty unmistakably 2001 in every single way, and also just not a very good song. They shift gears back to the 80s, well, with her cover of "Didn't Mean to Turn You On," which was actually produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, just like the original was. And it uses the original Shirelle backing track. So I think that fits in very well with what they're trying to do. But after that, there's some attempts at blending modern sounds with 80s vibes. And a lot of the time, it just doesn't work. Like, I tire pretty quickly of Mystical shouting over "Don't Stop Funkin' for Jamaica." Like, he doesn't need to be there. And I do just think the songs that lean more into the 80s work the best. So "All My Life" is another highlight, with some very Tina Marie kind of vibes. And it was even written by Rick James, so that makes sense. Works very well. I think that really sets the scene. And I think that overall, this album's kind of the same idea. It's got some good songs and some filler, but it feels rather haphazard. Like, it does feel like a soundtrack more than an album. And and I'm also just, it's same kind of thing as Charmbracelet had. I'm not sure that two relatively similar versions of Loverboy are necessary to bookend the album. Like, why are we starting the album with the lead single and then ending it with a remix? The differences are pretty negligible. But ultimately, it's still pleasant enough listen to and album to listen to, despite some hiccups. So it's still a 3.5. And I think that it's overhated. Like, I think it might be one of her lowest averages on Rate Your Music, and I'm not quite sure I understand that, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think Big Focus Show should review the movie. Just just don't ask me.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
Um, my number 10, I think this might be low for some people, but I didn't get much out of this. Um, even if this has a very good score on like radio music and all, but my number 10 is Caution from 2018. Well, let's start with the positive. The obvious positive is the 38-minute runtime. It's the shortest one of them all, and I definitely love that. Um, and it's definitely on. It's pretty fun actually to listen to, but also I'm not sure are there anything like new I heard like when I've done all these 14 previous albums. It just maybe feels um just a more like they at least didn't overdo this one, and like it has good songs, but I also well I think the opening song I don't really like the get GTFO. I think everyone knows what that means maybe, but I'm not gonna say it. But that's like I remember enjoying like A No No, I think it was, and like Portrait, and this is still not the Mariah sound I came to listen to this episode. But so it's kind of a tough because it's I like the length and it's definitely good, but I don't know. I don't know, do I really need this one either? But so I have this 3 stars. But I'm glad people are enjoying this album, but I'm not maybe the right audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling that it wouldn't be as high for you. I
Yeah.
figured.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about it yet. My number 9 is a bit of a surprise for me. It's E equals MC squared. I would have thought that that would be much lower. So after the pleasant surprise of the Emancipation of Mimi at the time, this album was a huge letdown to me. The title would lead you to believe that this was a sequel to Mimi, but I think where that album had a modern but classic sound, this one leans very much more into the production trends of the late 2000s. And late 2000s hip hop R&B production trends are among some of my least favorite ever. It was a sound that sounded thin and stale to me even when it was new. So as time has gone on, it's gotten worse. And it also doesn't help that the lead single, Touch My Body, is one of the worst of her career. But I now say that I think Obsessed is worse going back, but it's in the lower end for sure. The lyrics are just such a miss, and it's just not a very good song. Like there's just weird, it's just weird. I bought this album at the time more out of a sense of duty as a fan than actual excitement. And for a long time, I didn't listen to it much. However, it is better than I gave it credit for. Yes, it's by far it's far from my favorite, but there are stronger songs here overall than I thought from my memory of it. And even if I don't like the production style of some of the songs, like something like Side Effects is a good example of this. It's very 2008. I still think they're overall enjoyable as songs, as compositions. So that does give it a little bit of an edge. And I think it's a pleasant surprise to me that it's not at the bottom because I might have even suspected this would be my bottom album. But I ultimately put it above the next couple because despite those albums having some strong highlights, this album is actually more of a consistent listen. Like, I do think that I don't really have many songs on this album that I consider bad songs, or like it, but again, it's not really great either, but I still think like overall I like listening to it. It's fine. I mean, I can see your issues with it. It's very it is very robotic. It's very late 2000s trendy, but I still like it enough to give it 3.5. So
Yeah, I thought that would have been lower on your list, but hey, it's 3.5, and we don't care about those albums. No, I know. Yeah, we do. Um, 3.5 is not the kiss of death. It's not. I think I've said that sometimes, that 3.5 is the kiss of death, at least at home, but I'm not totally serious when I'm saying that. But my number 9 is Glitter, the soundtrack album. Soundtrack albums are always kind of tough, because it's a soundtrack. Even, well, this has just regular songs, I guess, um, but it's easier to like not feel as cohesive, I guess, when it's soundtrack albums. And yeah, I also don't. Again, I don't get the Loverboy twice on this album. I'm not actually that big of a fan of Loverboy. I think it was a single, but there's some quite annoying features. I when it I don't know, was it like there was some like very very like I don't know, annoying rapper in that. I don't know which one of out of those names, but it's not Ludacris. I know that, but I don't know who are Dap Pratt or 22, or I don't know these names at all. But um, but yeah, but Lead the Way, I enjoyed that. And oh yeah, one of the songs that was kind of like I had a mixed thoughts, because I enjoyed parts of it and parts of it don't, was The Last Night the DJ Saved My Life, which has like this great bass line of funky, like a Nile Rodgers type of guitar sound. And there was so much promise when that started, but I think some like the rappers, they're like doing like ad libs all the time, and it starts to, oh, like, please shut up. It's a bit too much sometimes with the features, but yeah, I like Never Too Far, and um I think All My Life, and like I this actually, like, I think this got to where it's at because of its highlights, and like, and I wouldn't maybe come to the whole album, but I would come to some songs here. And so it's still in that 3-star zone, unfortunately. I think 3.5 star, where I'm starting to, hey, maybe I should listen to this again. But yeah, 3 stars for Clearer. And I haven't seen the movie, and not sure will I ever do that. Maybe out of curiosity, but I think the whole Clearer thing was kind of a mess, and some of
what?
those weren't her fault, but because there was outside elements to the when it was released, unfortunately, and it was a mess.
Yeah. Oh, it was a mess at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh damn. Yeah.
So
So
my
you're
number,
number 8. Yeah.
yes, might be controversial, I think, possibly. It is Music Box. So yeah, I had a feeling. So this is my least favorite album of Mariah's classic era. But I mean, I still like it, of course. But so Dream Lover is a fantastic opener and a longtime favorite of mine, of her #1 singles. It's the song I can never get sick of. It's just so uplifting and hopeful. It's just a great pop song. But Hero is one that I don't like as much. It's a song that she originally wrote for someone else to sing. And you can kind of feel that. It doesn't have that same personal touch that a lot of the songs that she writes for herself to sing does. Like it's more general lyrically, and her performance kind of conveys that, I think. It's a torch ballad and it has a massive appeal and it works in that regard. And I get why people love it, but it just doesn't resonate for me. There's something missing for it. I much prefer the next song, Anytime You Need a Friend. It's a much more satisfying song for me with its gospel influence. And it kind of throws back to that sound of the previous album, even if it has more of the adult contemporary sheen of this album. And Music Box is another highlight. I love the melody of it. I love how it really lets Mariah's vocals shine through in a more spare arrangement, relatively speaking. But that is where the album kind of runs out of steam for me. The next run of songs are good, but they're just not among my favorites. Like, there's no bad songs here, but they're just not the ones that I really love, especially from this era. And you can feel, because the behind the scenes of this album is that Emotions wasn't as big of a seller as the debut. So Tommy Mottola and the record company wanted her to go in a more adult contemporary, more big selling direction, and it worked, but it's missing something. You lose something in that translation for me. Harry Nilsson still owns Without You. Mariah's is just a little too adult contemporary and sanitized for me. It's just a bit of a miss. I know that her vocals sound great on it, but it's just not. It's just, I don't know. It's not what the song needs. Other songs like Just to Hold You Once Again and All I Ever Wanted are my favorites in the second half of the album, but not all timers. So while this album is an easy listen and I enjoy it, it's missing that spark for me to really love it as much as the others. And I think that all just comes down to that more sanitized approach to songwriting and production. Not that Mariah is ever like rough around the edges or anything, but this one just feels too far in that super sanitized 90s adult contemporary zone for me. So, but it's still a 3.5 and the highest one I have. So
Yeah, it will be a little time when I start to talk about that, but I guess I do have a sort of I don't know. I know this is a popular album. I don't really know how much, and I think, well, yeah, it's a well-regarded album too. Um, oh, I think my last from the 2000s, The Emancipation of Mimi.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I was I was talking about with you about this album and me being a bit confused by it at first, and yeah, I kind of didn't realize that this was so like a party album, I guess is the one way to put it. But like I kind of thought this would be like more artistic, is a maybe, or but and well, this got the album of the year nominee at the Grammys, and yeah, like I this is maybe the best version of this 2000s like very, I don't know, dance pop or with hip hop influences and sort of sound, and like it has good songs and like good features, I'd say, at least for the most part. And but yeah, again, like I had to say this every time, but it's just not my style of music and like style of production, even if I think it's still it's well made, but like and I do have a nostalgia for the We Belong Together, and I think it's a great song. And I always like when Snoop Dogg comes around. I like his laid back style of rapping, and yeah, just it has good ballads too, and like I don't know, do I care about the opening song too much? It's like that. I guess it's kind of, if you're into club music, I guess you would like it, but um yeah, I don't know, just again, and I like that this wasn't like too long. Still, it's 50 minutes, but it's not overly long. But I still can get to the out of the 3-star mark, like for this one. But I will soon.
So number 7 for me is Caution from 2018. So this album was a breath of fresh air for me when it came out. I listened to it a ton, and I was actually excited for a new Mariah album for the first time in a long time. GTFO was the first promo single, and to me at the time, it just sounded so fresh and it's just something different. The actual lead single, With You, was a classic Mariah ballad that I think is one of the strongest examples of that in many years. Her voice still sounds great here, and I like the smooth R&B sound of the album. This album actually has what is pretty easily my favorite later period Mariah song, with Giving Me Life, her collaboration with Blood Orange. It's a very vibey, slow burn, and I just love how it grabs me every time and takes me for like a 6-minute ride with that extended outro. It's such an unusual song in her discography, and it's the closest Mariah has ever come to a prog epic with that outro. Like, I think it's just so, there's some guitar on that that's really different, and I just think it's really cool. One thing that's great about this album is the fact that it's a reasonable length, like you said, and the focus is not on padding it out to make it longer, but on making it a cohesive, proper album. Like, I think there seemed to be a concentrated effort here on doing that rather than just making it a collection of songs. I think it maintains a good vibe throughout, despite having many producers involved. I think there's basically a different producer on every song, but I don't know that that necessarily comes through as much as it does on some of the other albums. And I think it makes for a consistent listen and an album that is way better than you'd expect from someone who is almost 30 years into their career at this point, especially with all the ups and downs that she's had over the years. I think Portrait is the perfect closing track, a vulnerable and personal song looking back at her struggles, similar to the song Looking In from Daydream. It kind of is like a throwback to that, but an update. And right now, it's the last original song she has that's not a Christmas song. So I guess if she never releases another album, which I hope she does, but if she never does, it is a good ending track. But anyway, I'm up to 4 stars now. I do really like this album. I'm not sure how everyone else feels about it, but it's always been one that I've really liked. So
Yeah, and you're definitely not alone. As I think that's gotten pretty good reviews. And my number seven is Rainbow from 1999. The first album with sort of, well, I don't know, first album, but the hip hop elements are like really here. They started to definitely show on the previous ones, but I even think this is one step forward with that. Then um, I used to not be as big of a fan of Heartbreaker, but I think that song keeps growing on me. I like the Jay-Z feature on that song. Um, like I sometimes wasn't a big of fan of Mariah keeps like I wish I knew vocal terms, but there's sort of like switching up her style that was like more whispery type of, and she keeps on like going like in many directions with her vocals sometimes I feel like, and switching it up quite quickly sometimes, and I kind of think it kind of happens on Heartbreaker too, but I think it's kind of I feel like part of the charm of her vocals in that song nowadays. It doesn't distract me as much. And while this has the hip hop style, it still has those big ballads here. And the second song is co-written by Diana Warren. Um, and she hasn't still won an Oscar, unfortunately, for her. And can't can't take that away, Mariah's team. And yeah, it kind of feels like that maybe music box era ballad. It's it's big and I like it. And um this I wrote that it has a lot of like vocal overdubs that she sometimes do. And I think it's a kind of cool song, but I personally felt a bit of the runtime of the song and with how much I think it has a pretty good chorus. Uh, and I kind of like how they sang it with Usher and kept like going like switching up the vocals, like you do this, and again we have more of these ballads with again Diana Warren writing and now David Foster even like adult contemporary duo right there, and with After Tonight, and yeah, it's I think those are one of my favorite songs actually. And I didn't care for the Heartbreaker remix here. Um, I think it was unnecessary thing to do, and I would prefer Jay-Z's feature than any of those, and pretty much. And it's like there's like a bit maybe awkward, maybe the middle of this album with the remix, and then there's an interlude, and then there's a cover song, which is a pretty good Phil Collins cover. Um, not one of her worst covers, I'd say. And with Snoop Dogg is back here, and I like it. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure there's like I don't know was Maria or who keeps saying it, but they're singing about that part. But it's like the from Toto, like the churchy porchy. Um, I don't know. What's the word? Like lullaby thing at the end. Keep they keep.
There's rhyme.
Yeah, nursery rhyme. Yeah, yeah. And I was yeah. I just know I noticed that. It was a cool thing to notice. But I'm kind of struggling here of my score because I think there's plenty of good songs. It's I can definitely feel the runtime, 14 songs, 55 minutes, and I would definitely cut some of those out. Um, I'm gonna like I didn't even make up my mind of my score, but I have to give it a 3 star still because my next is a 3.5, and I don't think it's the same level.
Yeah.
And that, so I still have to be the unfortunate 3-star mark. Yeah.
Yes, that's fair. It is a pretty inconsistent album for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
My number 6 is The Emancipation of Mimi. Um, this felt like a huge breath of fresh air when it came out, and it reinvigorated my Mariah fandom at the time, when the majority of what I was listening to was very different from this. Um, this album continues with that hip hop and R&B influence, but the songs are much better. And Mariah is bringing that vocal magic back after a very tired sounding performance on Charmbracelet. The songs are stronger too. The album sounds modern and has enough of those rich classic elements that have aged well, even almost 20 years later, which it's hard to believe that this album is almost 20 years old. The singles here were huge hits that have endured, but there are so many great deep cuts here too. The stretch from Mine Again to Get Your Number in particular is fantastic and still hits all these years later. One and Only, unfortunately, ends that stretch and is a bit weaker. And I'd actually forgotten about it, and I can't even think about it how it goes right now. But Circles brings the album back on track. This album does away with some of the conventions of her previous albums that had become tired, like the covers and a remix of the lead single included on the album. All those things are gone, which is good. The focus is on more straight up bangers that also does her some favors at this point in her career, especially since they are very strong songs, as I've said, and it's very well produced album. The result is an enjoyable listen that is by and is her strongest album in a while, and actually, arguably for the rest of her career. So I have it at 4.5. So my jump was pretty big there in that section.
Oh. Yeah. Damn. Damn. I didn't expect the 4.5, but cool. Very cool. Um, oh yeah. I think, yeah, I finally get to that 3.5 mark here, and these are pretty much albums I knew, and I guess starting that run, I have to hurt you, Vanessa, here, but my number 6 is Butterfly from 1997. I think you, I don't, I don't think you, I don't think do you remember that I used to write something about this album and in the server we are, and so yeah, this isn't the peak Mariah for me, even if I think this has plenty of good to offer, and it pretty much starts with the first song, Honey, which I really enjoyed. The like this sort of keyboard piano sample keeps happening throughout the song, and yeah, I dig Honey, and just also like the Butterfly title song, the ballad. um I like the more of the dynamic nature of the song, goes up and down. Just it's sort of my style of ballads, and um I think I almost feel like this has quite a lot of these more maybe mid-tempo songs or ballad types, and I don't think it flows the best for me. It's closer to an hour, which isn't the ideal for me either, but there's some great there's still some great ballads. I think Whenever You Call is one of my favorites here. It's a strong ballad, and um I I I don't know what you feel about the Prince cover here, but I definitely prefer the Prince original. I think I think this is a bit too long. I would maybe cut a minute or two away, but and I kind of like the Prince version is almost like a raw type of deal, and the ending is like crazy even in the Prince with his screaming and all. But yeah, it's still a good cover. It's a worthy cover, but I think the most of my problems is if this would have been just shorter, a bit shorter, and maybe add some more upbeat songs to the maybe middle, and I would maybe like this more. But that I would definitely like this more. But it's still a 3.5. It's a good album. I can't get it higher than that, unfortunately.
That's fair. I didn't expect you to have it near the top because I remember what you said about it the other time listening, so wasn't a
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So next I'm gonna get festive, and I'm gonna go with Merry Christmas for my number 5. So it's often known as being the album with the juggernaut Christmas song on it, but this album has so much more to it than that. It's long been a part of the holidays for me as a favorite, and I've watched the momentum for All I Want for Christmas Is You just build and build over the years since it came out. Despite everything, I just can't be tired of it. I know a lot of people hate it, but I just can't. I will always love it. Don't care. But that's not even the only great original Christmas song here. Miss You Most at Christmas Time and Jesus Born on This Day are wonderful too. She also has many great renditions of traditional songs here, from hymns like Oh Holy Night, which I feel is an exceptionally difficult song to do right, and most people can't, but she does. And the secular classics like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I feel like she does a really great job with it. Just brings that childlike wonder, I guess you could say, to it. Like she really, really nails that. I feel like it's really difficult to make a classic Christmas album in modern times, as modern as almost 30 years ago can be. But it still kind of counts as modern times. And also to write a new Christmas standard. But Mariah did it. And that's huge. It's something that artists attempt every single year, and rarely do they deliver like she did. I think the key to her success is going for a very classic sound here, based on gospel and 60s influences, with enough of a modern touch to feel fresh, but also timeless. Unfortunately, it has planted the seeds for that Christmas career that she's going towards, but I still love it, and it's still a holiday classic, so it's 4.5 stars for me.
Glad it got high on your list too. But I won't be talking about that yet. You already had this album. My number 5 is Music Box from '93. And well, first of all, I find this a bit front-loaded for me. Dream Lover is just totally great song, and it's following the footsteps of memorable album openers we've had. And yeah, Hero is like a big ballad, and I'm a sucker for those. Um, I've slightly problem for me, so I've heard the song a bit too many times. That doesn't like grab me that well anymore, but I still like it. Anytime You Need a Friend though is I love it. It's a big gospel influenced ballad, and Mariah is showing her strong vocals, and some of the vocal runs and all she does here is just fabulous. And like it even has the session guitarist who's everywhere, Michael Landau here. And yeah, yeah, I wish I could be your friend, Mariah. But then title song, Music Box. I think it's good, but I don't think it's the same caliber as the previous songs were. Now that I know has a lot of information going on to the song, lots of elements happening, but at least it's catchy and that's good. Never Forget You is also a worthy ballad. This has a lot of ballads, and I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. So, and I like ballads, but it can sometimes hurt the flow of the record if you have too many ballads to. But I still won't forget you, Mariah. Don't worry. But Without You is yeah, I prefer the Nilsson version too. I do like this one too, and I actually knew this before I knew the Nilsson one, and but the Nilsson one is just something else, so magical. Um, then I've been thinking about you. I wasn't sure how I feel about the sound of the song, and I think if I remember, this was one of the songs that maybe was showing to the future that we maybe started to have this sort of hip hop influenced beats and all, but it ends on a good ballad. All I ever wanted. I enjoy the big drums on it, and I was kind of sad that the Everything Fades Away wasn't part of the album because I think that's one of maybe top 5 song of the album for me. I really enjoy it, but yeah, again, like this is not a that long of an album, but it feels longer than it actually is. It There might be a little bit too many ballads
Yeah.
and yeah, but I still gave it a 4 stars, so it's a very good album. And looking like only had one 3.5, which is odd, but
I only had 1 4, so
true,
yeah,
true.
it kind of breaks down sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
My number
yeah.
4, I don't know if you'll have this higher or not. I'm not sure. It's the debut, Mariah Carey. So it starts strong right off the gate with Vision of Love, her breakout song, and the one that's still very beloved even to this day. This is a strong, confident debut. Most of the big hits are in the first half of the album, but I think there are plenty of great deep cuts here as well. While it is very much of its time production-wise in a lot of ways, I think that in many cases her songwriting has a classic enough feel to it to overcome that. But some songs like Vanishing are more stripped back and timeless feeling among the late 80s, early 90s sound of some of these other tracks. And her vocal performance on that song is spine tingling. I even have a soft spot for some of the songs that fall more prey to the very, very 1990s sound. My least favorite, though, I would say, is All in Your Mind. That's always been my least favorite song on this album because I always thought it had a really weird structure to it and the transitions between the verses and the choruses. And I don't really care for that bridge ending part. Like it just does not work for me at all. So that's kind of a bit of a downturn in the album. But even in that case, I still like the chorus. The song itself does not come together very well, I don't think. But some of these other deep cuts I love a lot, particularly the entire second side, starting with Alone in Love. I love her vocals on that song. You Need Me is a taste of a rockier side to Mariah that we don't really see in the same way ever again, but I think she has a lot of swagger here, and it works better than you may expect. I have a lot of love for Sent from Up Above. It's very airy, and it's just got this kind of transcendent feel to it. And Prisoner's attitude is great, even if rapping may not be Mariah's strong suit. It's a little bit cringy, but like in like this cute way where you're like, oh, you tried. I like that she tried a lot of different directions within this debut, and it doesn't feel like a mishmash. It could, but I think it all flows very well, and it's a very fun album. And it's a great introduction to her as an artist. And I'm a little sad that we never got an album like this ever again, but I'm glad that we have this one. So that's another 4.5 for me.
So my number four is again, I might have a bit hot take to only have it number four, but I have Daydream here actually, and I kind of feel like this is the kind of like first half of the album is like maybe even sort of peak Mariah, and second half is definitely worthy and good and all, but I feel like there's a lot of ballads there happening, lots of, I think, multiple in a row, and I'm not I didn't really care about the interlude, Daydream interlude myself, but even if you have many ballads in a row, I think Mariah writes good ballads, but yeah, sometimes I feel like I definitely need something like to keep me interested more. And even if I think Forever is one of I really enjoy that ballad a lot. But the songs that are on the first half is like, ooh, there's Fantasy, which one of the more well-regarded songs that she has, and I love the Genius of Love sample from Tom Tom Club from the 80s, and I think it's so well used. And I also love the flow of her singing. It comes out so naturally, like on waves or something. And Underneath the Stars is another, yeah, it's a great one. Swan Week Day, maybe I've heard it a bit too many times, but um, I kind of like Boys to Men here, and I haven't really listened to a lot of Boys to Men, to be honest, but I think they're good vocalists, those fellas. But we have Journey cover. Obviously, I love Journey and Steve Perry, and I also am a bit biased to the Journey original, and I love that more. But it's a worthy cover, and I love that she uh, covers this in the 90s because I don't think Journey was that big during that time, and nobody really cared for Journey. So, and I've seen like a live version of this, so she also at least sang this on her fantasy Daydream tour. I don't know, is it called Daydream tour, but the tour that followed this album. And Always Be My Baby is an awesome song. I love the mid-tempo feel of the song. But yeah, um, I love the opening 5 to 6 songs. And then it's not a complete, it's not a disaster at any means, but I do sometimes feel a bit like maybe, I don't know, is it just a sequencing issue here or what, but I don't feel as captivated in the second half, so that's why it's number four. 4 stars for Daydream. Very good.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. It is a lot of ballads in the second half,
Yeah.
but it is also my number 3. So it's the first album of hers that I got when it was new. So I think some of that does play into my feelings about it, but it's just how it goes. I'd heard her songs on the radio before this, and I enjoyed them, like I said in the introduction. But the singles for this album made me really want to hear more and kicked off my fandom. I would have been around 10 when this came out, so it's a very special album. Even though I've heard it hundreds of times, and the singles from it even more than that. I'm not sick of any of it. Like many of my favorite albums of Mariah's, my favorite songs tend to be the non-singles, but everything here is great. It's still got that contemporary pop song of pop sound, sorry, of Music Box, but leaning more away from the adult contemporary and more toward R&B influences. It's a subtle blend that works very well, and maybe very well one of her best collections of songs overall. On this album, I think her cover of Open Arms works better than Without You, because the original is pretty bombastic. But like you said, it doesn't replace the original, but I think it's a worthy cover for sure. And it's bombastic in a different way than the original, I would say. The big singles are all in the first half of the album, but I should mention that Forever was actually a pretty big radio single at the time, even though people seem to have forgotten about it. But that was one of the songs that enticed me to get the album, actually, because I think I heard that more at the time than some of the others. But I think the deep cuts are strong enough to carry the second half of the album, so I guess I'm looking at it a little bit differently. But it is a lot of ballads. I mean, coming into it fresh, I could definitely see where it's just a little too much, but I think they're great ones. And I among them, there's still some variety. Like, I like that slinky hip hop influence Long Ago, which hints towards her future direction. And the house influenced Daydream interlude fantasy dub mix. I don't know why it's called that, because it's basically a song. It's not really an interlude, but I've always really liked that one as well. And I think it ends perfectly with one of her most personal songs up to that point, with Looking In. It's just a truly incredible and vulnerable performance from her, and just a song that I love. So this is my first 5-star album of hers. Didn't go crazy, but I still got 3.
Yeah, I kind of thought that this will be a 5-star album for you. And yeah, no, no, like in a perfect world, it would be a 5-star album for me, but I don't know what's the problem with me. But my number 3 is Merry Christmas, 1994. I'm actually a bit surprised I have a Christmas album this high. But I just like, I don't know, is it the December and we have quite a bit of snow here in Finland in like how many weeks for now, but it's just so festive sounding, and it's so feels warm, and I really like the sound of this album, and like I think this is like I think this is one of the biggest Christmas albums too, and it features one of the biggest Christmas songs. All I Want for Christmas Is You, and you truly can't escape the song. People have tried, but they're always found. But like, I also love it. I love the song a lot. I've made some people even question how much I love it, and like it's like I'd say best original Christmas song since, well, I don't know. Is it Last Christmas? I don't know. But the songs that aren't original are all chosen here, and her vocals are just amazing here, and and like she picks some of these, well, maybe obvious Christmas songs, but I don't think there's really nothing wrong about choosing those obvious Oh Holy Nights and What Silent Nights and whatever. And then like Oh Holy Night is like the perfect song to put Mariah's vocals to it, and it's it's an amazing version of it. And also Silent Night is a classic Christmas tune, and it's a very nice rendition of it. And um I was surprised how like religious some of these songs were, and well, I think two of the titles even has Jesus on them, and but maybe even if you aren't religious, I don't think it's like I don't think you would struggle that much with these songs. It's still got that holiday feel that we enjoy, or at least I do. And but yeah, I already said we have Jesus here, and we also have Santa Claus here, with Santa Claus is coming to town. And I was surprised, like with Santa Claus is coming to town, when the song like actually starts, how it reminds me of when All I Want for Christmas Is You really starts when it comes with the piano quickly, and it was just a nice factor. And yeah, I love the medley of Hark the Herald Angels sing slash Gloria. It's big and beautiful, that medley, and yeah. Um, I actually gave this a 4.5 stars. It's just I think the perfect time is listening to this right now, so I guess it also a factor, I guess. But yeah, 4.5, great album.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, of course, it would be different if we were listening to it in like June, but I
Yeah.
probably in the same spot myself. But
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
definitely better this time of year.
Yeah.
So my number two might be a bit of a surprise, actually, because I actually thought this was my number one. But Butterfly is my number two album this time around, going back to everything. So this is where Mariah really leans into and embraces her hip hop influences, and it really paves the way for her career going forward. It's right from Honey, we know we're in new territory now. That's a whole new sound, I think. Butterfly is a big classic Mariah Carey ballad, but My All and The Roof continue into some newer territory. The Roof is one of my all time favorite Mariah songs, as we'll see. It's the perfect blending of hip hop into her sound. She does this well many times over the years, but this might be the most perfect example of that blend. Everything about how that song comes together works so well for me. Um, just the lyrical story and just the sample and her vocals, it's just all perfect. Throughout the album, there is this marriage of her new direction and that more pop based sound that she'd been doing before that, with some callbacks structurally to Daydream. I think both sides coexist pretty seamlessly. And over the years, I've heard this album so many times, and I still love it. It was a pretty prominent album for me throughout my teen years, and one that's always stayed in rotation in some way. It's also got my favorite cover of hers. I love her cover of Prince's Beautiful Ones. I think it's a fairly faithful rendition to the original, but I just love the way that she sings it and how well Drew Hill compliments her on the song. I don't I'm not a huge fan of Drew Hill. They were big at the time and they've kind of been forgotten, but I think that they work really well on this song with her, and they feed off each other in a great way. And I know it is long, but I don't mind the length of it. I've always thought that it was the perfect length, but I can definitely see how, because I think it's like almost 7 minutes long, or maybe it is over 7 minutes long. It's pretty long. But so this is the album I've long considered my favorite without going through and ranking everything, but it's been overtaken. So it's still a special album. It's still 5 stars. Still great. So
Well, this was a surprise that I have. I was I was confident it's your number one, but will be interesting. Will we have the same number one or not? So I have two albums left here, and my number two is the debut, Mariah Carey. And but yeah, by the debut, it is like so first album, and starting with Vision of Love is like the most confident thing you can do. Like like confidently showing everyone who's the next like vocal boss. And Narada Michael Walden is producing the song, and the bass is by Marcus Miller, who I love. And yeah, it's just an awesome song. And like there's just looking at this track listing, it's closer to banger after banger sort of deal. I'd say even more to that to my number one album, but um, I like most of these songs. There's Got to Be a Way. Um, I love the huge, or at least huge sounding gospel ensemble in that song, and yeah, some days just very danceable. Um, Makes me move, and I love the guitar solo. It's kind of a short but sweet type of deal, and works so well here. And um, I think I'm gonna slightly disagree with you about all in your mind, because I love it and I love the curse. Well, I think you also love the curse, so, or at least like it. And I love that. Um, I know you think my love is slipping away. Um, how she sings it, and there's like the slight breaks to the give it the more rhythmic approach. And I think those little moments in like the type of song makes it more addicting to listen to it over and over. Um, so yeah, really dig it. You Need Me um, is Mariah's most rocking song, I'd say. Like if I would have to submit the heaviest Mariah song, I would pick this one, like in a camp situation or something. Yep. But it features a blistering guitar solo, and Omar Hakim plays drums. He's played with Dire Straits and Sting and Miles Davis, and yeah, that's a great one too. And um, I like the sound of this album. It's not my it's not my top favorite sounding album, but it's up there definitely. It sounds very good. Um, I have like 90s CD of this, and I'm not sure. Sometimes there's like I think that's a drum machine in sent from up above. Like you have Omar somewhere. Like you could hire like why not hire him? But and Prisoner when Prisoner starts, I'm getting like share vibes. I don't know, is that a correct thing to do? But like, and that spoken word thing that at least happens in the beginning is a bit. It's kind of funny too. But- and it ends with the number one ballad, "Love Takes Time," and like this album is crazy. Like your first album, and you have four number one singles in the United States. Whoa, that's crazy. Like, oh, damn. But yeah, great album, 4.5. Really dig it.
Nice.
Yeah. So our number ones are
Yeah.
the same.
Yay. Emotion, which I think is an unusual pick for number one. So it's funny that we both arrived at that, but that's awesome. Um, Despite it only being a year after the debut album, it's got such a different vibe. And I think that Mariah explores many more of her musical influences here. There's a very classic sound to a lot of this, good amount of gospel, Motown influence. She even dabbles a little bit in some jazz, just a little bit. and with that closing track, The Wind. As time has gone on, this album has endured as one of my favorites, as kind of as a bit of a dark horse, I guess. Yeah. When I was first getting into her, I didn't necessarily like it as much. I think at the time it probably sounded a little dated to me because it would have been around the later 90s that I was listening to it. So it didn't quite resonate the same, but it's steadily risen in my ratings. Some of my very favorite ballads of hers are on here, like And You Don't Remember, So Blessed, Till the End of Time. Her voice is in top form, and while she isn't as feisty as she is on the debut, she brings a lot of confidence and flair to her performance. You can tell that she's making the album that she wants to make here. Like this is what she wants to be doing, and you can feel that. And I think that's what puts it up a little bit above some of the others and what makes it so great. There's just a real joy coming from her. And as much as I enjoy the variety here and the songs on the debut, I'm sorry, I worded that wrong. As much as I enjoy the variety in the songs on the debut, I do feel that this sound suits her that much more as an artist. And I think it's just a shame that we never get this again. This is the only time we see something like this from her. And I guess that just makes it that much more special and maybe puts it above some of the other ones. So yes, it's obviously a 5-star album and my favorite, which definitely was a bit of a surprise. I knew I would have it high, but I didn't realize it was going to be number one. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And we're the coolest Mariah fans here. And with Emotions as number one. And like radio music score is whack on this album. I don't know
Yeah.
where that whack came from, but it's definitely whack. And yeah, I think it's a perfect balance of that R&B pop bangers, upbeat ones, and the heartfelt ballads. And I I might think this is the best vocal album of hers too. And I love the sound a lot. It feels like very open. It has a lively feel. It like invites you to come hang out with her in like like a hot summer day or something. And Emotions, I feel like Emotions is one of the best vocal performances recorded on tape, in my humble opinion. But and also it's one of the most fun pop songs I know, and the visual notes are amazing. And like, well, honestly, I like every song here and love most. Um, like Can't Let Go was it was number one song. I think it was number two on the Hot 100 chart, but
Yeah. It
it's a
was
great one.
considered a failure because it wasn't number one.
Oh yeah, did it break the streak?
Yeah.
Oh,
But they
oh that.
also, the single version is different than the album version. It's not as good. They take out
Oh,
that whistle, that part at the end where she does the really high note. Like they cut some
oh,
parts out. It's not, so that could be part of it. The album version is definitely superior of that song.
yeah, yeah. I haven't heard the single version, but if you got the ending, like, yep, definitely worse. Make It Happen. I like the big piano hits, and it has more personal lyrics, and I love how the vocal evolves throughout the song. And yeah, it's fantastic. If It's Over has one of my favorites here, has Steve Smith on the drums from Journey fame. And again, I get the Journey. And like, yeah, I love it, and great ballad. And one of the question marks for this album and whoever is on the marketing team, well, the first thing is why wasn't this album bigger? I have no idea. I have no idea. And second is why wasn't You're So Cold a single? I don't get it. It's like super catchy and very superb song. And So Blessed has a heartfelt vocal, and I don't know. It's hard to say which is my like least favorite song here. It might be The Wind, but I also kind of like how different it is from the rest of the album. So but yeah, I gave this a 5 stars. I had to give this a 5 stars. I think I kept listening to this quite a bit here, and it's just a magnificent album.
Yeah, it's funny because I was even looking at some fan rankings because I'm not entirely sure. Aside from Butterfly being very high and Daydream being very high, I wasn't really sure how most fans really ranked things. But there's a lot I saw that had Emotions quite low. I think it wasn't in the top bracket. But some of these people I think leaned more towards the R&B hip hop influenced stuff too. So like I saw a lot of Emancipation of Mimi very high, and so I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, it is funny that we
Mm.
arrived at that
Yeah,
one both as number one when it's not really very typical, I don't think. So, but that's cool.
sadly, yeah,
Or right,
yeah.
they're wrong. So
We have the right attitude here.
yeah.
Uh, but well, that was our ranking, Mariah ranking, and next up we have the top 10 songs of Mariah Carey, and Vanessa is gonna start with her top 10 songs.
Right. So my top 10 songs, a lot of deep cuts, just kind of the way it fell. So number 10 is Giving Me Life from Caution. Number 9 is Stay the Night from the Emancipation of Mimi. Number 8 is So Blessed from Emotions. Number 7 is Mine Again from the Emancipation of Mimi. Number 6 is Fantasy, but the album version, not the remix from Daydream. Number 5 is Till the End of Time from Emotions. Number 4 is Vanishing from Mariah Carey. Number 3 is Looking In from Daydream. Number 2 is Dream Lover from Music Box. And number 1 is The Roof Back in Time from Butterfly.
Nice. That was a lot of deep cuts. Yeah. I think I will have a
Much, I
different
think
route.
it's
But I guess you've heard. I I can imagine you've heard most of those big songs like so
yeah,
many times. Like, but yeah, I will have more hits, I feel like, but there's nothing
yeah.
wrong with that. Um, but yeah, my number 10 is from the debut. Um, All in Your Mind. Yeah, I love it. Number 9 is the Emotions song that wasn't a single, unfortunately. You're So Cold. Super catchy. Number 8 is from Daydream. Always Be My Baby. And number 7, again from the debut, is Someday. Very danceable. Number 6, Anytime You Need a Friend from Music Box. Love how big the song is. Number 5 is from Emotions, If It's Over. And number 4, Emotions fandoms keep on growing. Make It Happen. Number 3, yeah, the big one, All I Want for Christmas Is You. I don't know why I laughed, but I just love it too much. Number 2 is Fantasy from Daydream. Um, like yeah, also the album version. I've always listened to that version the most, and I love that. Number 1 is Emotions from Emotions, and if you don't know any Mariah song, that's my go listen to that. That's my. But you must know All I Want for Christmas Is You if you're watching here. and you're watching this top 10 songs.
You would think so, but I guess you never know.
Yeah. I don't know how many we had in common there. I didn't really
Uh,
think.
we had fantasy. That might
Yeah.
be it.
Damn. Damn.
Well, we were well representing lots of different things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of songs. What can you do?
Yeah. There is. Our next thing is to highlight the non-album song here, and Vanessa kept recommended me the Rarities compilation, which I'm now saying everyone should listen to that if you're a Mariah fan, especially. And
Yeah.
but what is your highlighted song of Mariah Carey?
I'm going with Here We Go Around Again, which comes from 1990. It's an outtake from her first album that only surfaced in 2020 with the Rarities collection. It's just such a joyous, catchy song. It's kind of hard to believe that they cut it from the album. Like, I don't really get it. Like, it's so good. It doesn't make any sense why they just didn't release it, didn't even make it a B-side, nothing. It just, you never heard it until 2020. And I remember how excited I was to finally hear some mysterious deep cuts like that in at that time. And that one was really a treat. Like, there's some great stuff on that compilation, like you said, but that one just extra special, I think.
Yeah, I kept smiling because how much I like that song, and how we picked the same song.
Oh, I wonder if we would do that. It's like, what
Uh,
happens if we pick the same song? But guess we
well,
won't.
well, there's no rules, so we're
Yeah.
just both gonna talk about it. Um, yeah, I was so surprised by the song and how much I enjoyed it, and well, and I really don't understand how this wasn't on an album and came out like 30 years after, and I don't get it. We had to like some albums later had like 17 songs and they wouldn't
Yeah.
put this song, but um I don't get it. But it's a very fun pop song. Yeah, should have been on the debut album, or like it fits like on either debut and maybe even Emotions.
Yeah.
And and yeah, I like there's like the funky guitar lines, and there's lots of rhythm to the song and awesome vocals, of course. And
Yeah.
and it's so refreshing. And
Yeah.
obviously I listened to this after I've heard most of the other albums, and I wasn't there at that. Well, I wasn't as big of a fan, and when I heard this song, I was like, I'm back in heaven. 'Cause,
Yeah.
here we go. Here we go around again. Uh, so good. I keep saying here I go again, but here we go around again. It's the song title. You should check it out.
Love that little clip at the end, like the studio talk where she goes, that end part was a bit iffy, like when she says that at the very end of the song. Just a nice touch that they left that in there. Because she's
Yeah,
always so polished, especially in that era, but to have that little bit of her in that song is really cool.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if this had been originally recorded and made to the album, it probably wouldn't exist that part.
Yeah, they would
But
have
I
taken
guess
that.
it, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense out of this like archival thing.
Yeah.
You can keep those, and yeah, we picked the same song, and yeah, we had
How
the
you know it's a good one?
yeah, and yeah, this was our Mariah Carey episode, and next time, next ranking we're gonna do, we have a new guest, a new band, and it's gonna be Queensrÿche, and The guest is an I won't say the guest yet. If you've se- but if you've seen a certain other channel, I mean you know him, but um so that's gonna be our next ranking episode. I want to thank Vanessa to join me here. Love to hear your ranking and song picks and all. And I'm glad we got to do this. We've talked about this quite a bit of time actually. Like we
Yeah,
just someday we're gonna do this. And now we have a
yeah,
channel to put this on. I just play it loud. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for watching and gonna see you next time. Bye bye.